High fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home. Don Mattingly. Tuck waits one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined with my tag team partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
The much anticipated episode 100. We made it. We're finally here. The big 100. I want to thank my sister real quickly for these balloons in the background delivered to me about an hour or two ago. So if you're watching us on video, you can appreciate those on YouTube. If not, just picture them in your head. A nice gold 1 and 2 baseballs for the zeros. But I mean, we're here, Steve. Did you ever think we were making it to episode 100?
I did think we were going to make it to episode 100. The century mark is certainly one of those milestones you look at as we continue to drive through doing what Tablesetters and what we thought it would look like. I think the format has largely changed, but I think the mission of this show was always to get out there for you and I to have a platform to discuss baseball and really to be a more widely discussed type of show than most other team-centric shows that we listen to consume. And I think we've done a really good job of really cultivating pretty dedicated audience, some awesome guests, and I'm looking forward to the next 100 episodes.
Yeah, there's nothing more gratifying than, loading an episode on Twitter or X and then like an hour later seeing someone retweet it like, oh, I've been waiting for this one, and reposting and giving us feedback on it. And Instagram, same kind of thing. So getting the loyal fan base is really, really cool. And obviously we do everything we can to kind of get it out there and push it out there and expand it a little bit. But it's really cool to think of that this was an idea now from a few years back. Again, we've said this if you have heard the show before. If you haven't, it really originated from we used to do kind of little weekly wrap-ups for our fantasy baseball league to kind of get more buy-in from all the owners in that league. And it really did work, by the way. Like the league is still great, but I feel like there was no time it was more on fire than those years that, we could weekly record an episode about just what's happening in the fantasy league. And we always thought about expanding it to like a real baseball podcast. And it took us a while to pull the trigger. We said in our first episode, there's a very good chance we're just kind of yelling into the ether and nobody hears it but us. And that's not the case. And that's the coolest thing about this. It's grown steadily. Hasn't been like an overnight success where all of a sudden it's top of the list, but to see ourselves on charts and all those kind of things, whether it be Good Pods or the Apple podcast list, 2 guys that have no connections to any former athletes or anything like that. And that's another thing. I think maybe the coolest thing that's come with this show is the conversations we've gotten to have with people that work in Major League Baseball or had careers in Major League Baseball or have other podcasts like we do about specific teams and things like that. We've been able to meet and talk to a lot of great people.
To see the amount of guests that have come on here and given us the insight into all the things going on with specific teams or just the league in general, and even fantasy-centric episodes, which, as you mentioned, was the inspiration originally for this show. It's an awesome thing to see. And like I said, I'm looking forward to the next 100 episodes to see where this thing grows to.
Yeah, and I think that's important to look at too. It's like we kind of wondered as we started it, like, how is this going to get the most footing? Should we really center a lot around fantasy? Should we really do dedicated segments every time and stick to the formula? And it's kind of grown and adapted as we've gone. And I'm kind of glad we didn't, put ourselves in one little category where, all right, we have to solely focus on fantasy baseball or solely focus on prospects. Like, yeah, maybe we'd get more viewership or listenership that way because people kind of look for those niches. But for us personally, I find it a lot more fun to be able to take every episode wherever we want to take it. If we want to center around like, hey, these prospects are coming up, let's talk about them, we can do that. If the NL West is coming down to the wire and it's crazy and we want to really kind of focus on that, maybe we get a guest of someone that covers the NL West, things like that. So if you do tune into us weekly and bi-weekly sometimes or twice a week, you have a lot of choices in podcasts, and we know that. So we really, really appreciate you guys giving us your time. If you're new to the show and for whatever reason, episode 100 is your first episode listening here, stick around. We think you're going to like what you hear. We're 2 baseball fans. We watch it day in, day out. as much as we can. We consume other podcasts as well. We read about it. So we try to be as knowledgeable as we can. We try to pass it on without forcing our opinions down your throats. And like I've said many times, my favorite thing that we do on this show is we are kind of anti-hot take. That's just, there's too much of those in the world. We're just going to give you what we think, whether it's hot, cold, or somewhere in the middle.
So before we dive into this episode, make sure you guys go to IG and on Twitter at Tablesetters Pod, you can find the show and support us there. Devin running the X machine over there, posting some polls, driving conversations, and whatever you post over there, if you want to let your opinion be known on this show, that's how you get to us. You can send us a DM on Instagram as well. But you mentioned the NL West and the tight race we're seeing here. Let's head that way and go into our opening segment. All right, for this weekend, it was the much anticipated tilt between the Dodgers and the Padres. A lot of bad blood between those two teams, as we know, a throwback to what used to be really heated rivalries, and they're definitely a throwback, as I said. So the Dodgers sweep of the Padres was more than just 3 wins. I think they reestablished themselves in real time. So entering Friday, LA was trailing San Diego by a game, and by Sunday, the Dodgers had flipped it to a 2-game lead, and they secured the head-to-head season tiebreaker with an 8-2 victory over the aforementioned San Diego Padres. So that tiebreaker could really prove decisive with only 38 games left on this schedule. So we saw a lot from Freddie Freeman, 3-run home run in the first inning on Sunday. Feels like it's a down season for him, but he seems to be coming alive at the right time. He finished the series 5 for 11 with 2 home runs and 5 RBIs. Mookie Betts, long conversation about him each week about the health issues in the beginning of the season. His go-ahead home run in the 8th and his first against the Padres this year. And since August 1st, he's hitting .298 with a .935 OPS, which definitely is a rebound from that first half that has been more than sluggish. So offensively, the Dodgers seem like they're getting going at the right time. Very quiet weekend for the Padres. We look forward to what's going to happen between these two teams. Of course, they're tail ending it. They're going to go their separate ways for right now. Dodgers going to the Rockies. We have the Padres hosting the Diamondbacks. But this was the Dodgers' first 3-game win streak in 6 weeks. Their home record is definitely anchoring them, but they definitely dominated the Padres, and they continue to do that this year. They've outscored them 53-33 in head-to-head games this year. Offense has grown cold. Our friend from Divine Sports Gospel posting those post-games win or lose, talking about the Padres. He seems a little bit downtrodden, but not losing hope.
Yeah, and then the important thing to remember is they meet again in San Diego just a few days from now for another set, and that could change the tune of all this. I mean, 3 games just changed everybody's attitude, because before the series started, everyone was like, San Diego on a roll here. You know, everyone's showing that graphic where, like, this long ago they were 9 games back, and suddenly they're a game up, and now, you know, a few days later they're back again, but they're very much in the thick of things. It's just interesting. The Dodgers may very well be getting right at a very good time as we approach September, and the dog days are moving closer and closer to that September race where everything has to kind of get set in stone and pressure really gets turned up a bit. And you can no longer keep on saying, oh, we got plenty of time left, plenty of games left. Like that, it's got to stop coming out of managers' mouths, because it's not really true at this point. It's getting to the thick of things here. But I mean, watching these games, I mean, not a lot of drama, which, I mean, everyone was excited, like, get your popcorn ready, including us, kind of promoting it all week leading up to it. Not a lot of drama. Maybe the Padres feed off of that in this series. I know they don't like getting thrown at, and that's what kind of leads to this usually, but just regular baseball. And even though there was a couple close games in the series, it just never felt like the Padres were going to win one of those games. Even last night when they tied it up late, it just never really felt like it. And part of it is because, I mean, the way it got off to a start was not great. Losing Michael King to the IL pretty much right before the series started. That's not how you want to start, because then you basically have kind of a bullpen game in game 1, right? They throw Wandy Peralta out there as an opener. Vasquez gives you 3 2/3, and that's a big part of this. If you look at the statistics, so Vasquez, who kind of sort of the starter or bulk man, if you want to call it, goes 3 2/3 on Friday. Cease gives you 3 1/3. He's a whole nother story. Just, I think, disappoints Padre fans time and time again in big spots, especially against the Dodgers. And then Darvish, 4 innings. So no one even gave you 5 as a starter. So that's problem number 1, as great as your bullpen is. And then Tatis and Machado, man, like that's where you make your money. They went 4 for 23 combined with 1 RBI the entire series. It's just not going to get it done. Tatis usually thrives in Dodger Stadium. Neither of them could do much of anything, but they go play the Giants, I believe, now. go sweep that series, get yourself a lot of momentum once again, and bring it with you into the next Dodger series, and it could change everything. I think even though there's not, like I said, tons of games left, I think this story between the Dodgers and Padres is far from over.
Yeah, and they've now won. The Dodgers have 14 of the last 18 series against San Diego. This dates all the way back to 2021. So it's Tails' oldest time. I know that it's been a rivalry, but it's been pretty one-sided at this point. And you did mention that the Padres are going over to San Francisco, or they're hosting San Francisco. I had them on the schedule with the Diamondbacks, but either way, staying within the division. The thing I'm looking at too, before we move on from this series and get ready for our other topics, was the bullpens. And you look at Alex Vesia, he allowed runs in 4 straight appearances prior to the series. He retired 5 of 6 hitters on Sunday for his 5th save. He punched out the aforementioned Manny Machado to close the game. But the bullpen as a whole for the Dodgers covered 10 innings across the series, and they just gave up 3 runs. On the Padres, looking past the trade deadline, the hottest topic was Mason Miller, 100-mile-per-hour fastball, the 1.62 ERA. We saw the Padres bullpen give up 6 earned runs in only 8 innings in this series. So not the way you want it to go down. And you got to give a note to Tyler Glasnow as well. 5 innings on Sunday, 2 runs, striking out 7. And don't look now. If they get him going as a top of the rotation ace, this Dodger team, as you mentioned before, could be getting hot at the right time. And don't look now. We may have a favorite to repeat in the National League at the very least.
Yeah, and how different does that rotation suddenly look? It looks more like the rotation everyone was talking about leading up to opening day, right? You got Glasnow, Blake Snell back in the fold now. Yamamoto, it's weird because Yamamoto, I feel like every once in a while has a blow-up start, and I think that kind of takes the attention away from how good he's actually been. If you look at his statistics as a whole, he's been very, very solid. But no one's talking about Yoshinobu Yamamoto. I feel like I barely hear any conversation about him, see any clips of him. Like it's weird. It's like he's invisible, which is strange. Only second year in the league. Clayton Kershaw, a lot of talk about how he seems to be aging in reverse. Like he just knows how to get it done and how to get through 6. And again, we should mention you never know when those injury concerns, Kershaw's back and everything else, a lot of miles on those tires. When those could creep up, we don't know. But what they're getting from him right now is like gravy. I think if you ask any Dodgers front office people, they're probably thrilled with what they've gotten from Clayton Kershaw so far. Roki Sasaki, really one of the only down points right now, had a rehab start, 2 innings, and looked awful according to most sources. Just didn't look like he was giving much there. Velocity was down compared to what they said he was throwing in side sessions. So you wonder if they get anything else from him. I could see maybe bullpen. They've come out and said Shohei Ohtani will basically be limited to 5 innings or less for the rest of his starts, or I guess foreseeable. So they're keeping track of him very closely. But yeah, they suddenly feel deep again, a bunch of potential aces in that rotation. And that's not good news for these other National League teams. And a lot of National League teams, other than the Brewers, that were at the top have struggled lately. The Cubs, the Mets, the Padres have been up and down. We're hot, but now this, getting swept, obviously, you're not going to feel hot after that against your arch rival. So Dodgers going up, and the other NL teams, a lot of them trying to get their footing again, other than those Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah, definitely. And as we look forward to the next series with the Padres and the Dodgers, it's something to look forward to. And I want to just make note about Glasnow. Looking at his stats, I had him on pace for 178 strikeouts. He's at 72 because of the abbreviated season thus far. So he's coming into form right now, looking at him. And we know how nasty he could be in tight spots. So looking forward to see what he brings to the table for the Dodgers down the stretch. But let's head over to the Little League Classic, which was what you brought to the table for the opening set.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention it, to be honest. Like sometimes we get big into numbers and all these things. This is just a very clear observation for my opening say. The Little League Classic is just fantastic. The Little League World Series is fantastic. The vibes, the environment, everything is so, so cool. I feel like I've watched it more this year than I have in a long time. And just the game itself, Mets Mariners, was fantastic, but everything leading up to it, the players greeting them off the plane and then getting on the bus with them. Just awesome stuff. Obviously, some players you can watch and know what I'm talking about. Some players are a little more into it than others. Other players you could tell would rather not have to deal with all of it. But you see guys like Brandon Nimmo and Julio Rodriguez kicking it with these kids and genuinely having fun and being excited. Francisco Lindor, these guys as well. Carlos Mendoza ends up realizing the Venezuela team is from his hometown and has some kind of ties to some of these guys. I was watching Venezuela beat Japan before we started recording today. and their coach is using a fungo that Mendoza gave him yesterday. So pretty cool to see those ties and just the access they get to these players. I mean, memories that they will never, ever forget. So I don't know. One of the best things Major League Baseball does, hopefully it never, ever ends. We talked about how the Bristol thing went really poorly for them for a lot of different reasons. This one is one they get right year after year. So I just shout out to Major League Baseball. And again, another successful Little League Classic. Obviously, I'm happy that the Mets got their second win in a row against a very good team, much needed. Hopefully that kickstarts them. If you remember last year, the Tigers had a very exciting win in the Little League Classic, and it did kind of kickstart their craziness that got them into the playoffs, which was unfathomable for many months before that. So as a Met fan, I'm hoping for that, but just as an overall baseball fan, what a wonderful event.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've been chasing the high of this and the Field of Dreams game for the longest time. They're trying to model the other future exhibition style games that obviously do mean something in the grand scheme of things. But you mentioned the atmosphere itself. You got the players in custom uniforms, the kids in the stands starting the way, the MLB stars mingling with the little leaguers. I remember last year Jazz talking about anime and showing a lot of his personality in the stands. And then this year, the same thing. Sean Manaea had a long extended conversation out there as well. But I like the highlight of Mark Vientos here. Before the game, he slid down the famous LeMade Hill, and he was with the Little Leaguers. Something he never got to do as a kid. He made it noted that this was something he wanted to do. And then hours later, he hit that 103.5 mile per hour home run off of George Kirby. Good for his 12th of the season. Of course, a bit down year for Mark Vientos. And we don't want to highlight the disappointment of him, but big moment for him. Went 2 for 3, 4 RBIs. And it was his first 4 RBI game since September of 2023. Something to look forward to for him. The Mets, dude, they've earned back-to-back wins for the first time since July 27. We know their struggle. This was a 16-game streak without consecutive victories. So I know you felt it as a fan, but watching them in real time, first series win since July, their sweep versus the Giants the weekend of the 20th to the 22nd. And hopefully the Mets have gotten that funk out of their system at this point. I think looking at them from a grand scheme of things, they have to be able to get past this stretch and not let it linger. And looking at them at this point, you just want to see them get right at the right time. Similar, we're talking about the Dodgers. There's a lot of talent on this team. They have a lot of injuries. And I think that losing streak could have been enough to kill a lot of teams, the way they were losing games. But the fact that they've emerged and took a series from a really talented team that was really hot, this has a chance for a momentum swing that could swing for the Mets in a very positive way.
Yeah, I very much hope that's true. And we've said for a long time now, and I think it's very, very true. Francisco Lindor, man, the Mets go as he goes. And he has started getting going in a big way this last week or so. So it's not a surprise that things feel like they're starting to turn. And when they win 2 games like that, and you watch them, you're reminded oh, this team really is super talented as far as how many guys they have that can help them, whether it be the pitching side or the offensive side. And we'll talk about Nolan McLean a little later when we talk about some prospect stuff, because I think that's an important part of this too, because he was a part of the first win to get past that big losing streak. But Juan Soto, another footnote we should mention, first player in Major League Baseball this year to reach the 30 home run, 20 stolen base combination mark. First time he's ever done it. Easily the highest total for stolen bases for him. I believe his previous high was 12. So as critical as we can sit here and be of Juan Soto for a lot of different things, and mostly because of how much money he's making, because overall you look at his stat line and 99.9% of players would take that every year. But for him, a lot of critiques for him, but to see him add the speed part of the game a little bit, even though he's not fast, just figuring out how to steal bases, and the Mets as a whole have done a really good job of that. Cool to see. I don't think it'll be an annual thing for him. I don't expect to see him steal 20 bases or more every year. But cool to see him add that this year. And like you said, I hope it gets the ball rolling a little bit here as a team. I will say this, 2 other footnotes I thought that caught my eye. Cal Raleigh signing a toilet seat was hilarious. And he did it very casually. The guy's holding it up. Raleigh just puts the marker up there and signs it and moves on. And the other thing, you mentioned Vientos and other Mets going down the hill. Julio Rodriguez also went down the hill. Every time one of these guys goes down the hill, I think to myself, these GMs have to be holding their breath, that an ankle doesn't get caught or anything like that. When Julio went down, he goes down fine. But if you haven't seen the video, look it up. He gets up. One of the security guards, an older lady, I don't know how it happened, ends up tumbling down the hill and nearly took Julio's knees out, like from the front. Like it is as close as it gets. And I'm glad it didn't happen because I don't think any major leaguer would be going down those hills in the foreseeable future if he was out with like a torn whatever in his knee. But breathtaking to watch the video, even if you know what's going to happen. It's so close. But all good things. Great job to Major League Baseball and the Mets and Mariners for spending time with those kids.
Yeah, this has become one of those highlighted events, almost like the end of the summer type of thing. I'm not wishing it away.
Yeah.
We still have a few weeks left, but I always feel like when they have this on the calendar, looking forward to just the kids having fun. Because at the end of the day, that's what baseball is all about. And you want the kids to embrace the game and growing the younger fan base. And things like this go a really long way for the engagement on both sides of the ball. So definitely something we're going to give kudos to MLB in doing those things right. Because as much grief as we gave them for the event they had this year in Bristol, everything went right here. And I think that them sticking and trying their best, because we got to give them a lot of credit for stepping outside the box and doing things like this, because it would be easy just to play the games at the home stadiums. And you give them a lot of credit for at least trying and letting these players embracing it, because it feels like they've all had a good time. And the players weekend thing definitely was more muted than we've seen in the past. Obviously no names on the jerseys, just numbers on the sides of the hat. The personality of the players with the bats and the cleats, those things show a lot of different sides, people that they engage with. You mentioned sign the toilet seat. Yes. Like what we saw with Cal Riley from the beginning, like he didn't feel embracing of that nickname, but it's just, it adds to the lore of these players. Watching him blast the home runs, he's becoming kind of a cult hero, not just for Seattle, but for baseball. Him winning the home run derby was a big deal. And those little things go a long way. And like people seeing on Instagram, that's how young fans engage with this sport. It sounds silly, but it's true.
Oh, it's 1,000,000% true. And it's only going to go further that way. So they need to keep on catching that wave. And I think they've started understanding that.
All right, well, let's head into our meat of the order and talk about the rest of the news around baseball.
We have the meat.
All right, so episode 100 brings us one of the more pivotal topics in the history of this show. And we saw a nugget of truth on the Little League Classic game where Rob Manfred was mic'd up in the booth talking about really the future of this game, asked questions, and he casually dropped the bold vision yet. So if Major League Baseball does expand, and we all fully expect it will be expanding, the league could abandon its traditional American and National League structure in favor of a geographic realignment built around East and West groupings. So he did frame this, Devin, around player travel. He talked about the postseason matchups being more even and really looking at the broadcasters' more consistent prime time windows. And talk about the West Coast. He said, quote, "I think if we expand, it could provide us with an opportunity to geographically realign. I think we could save a lot of wear and tear our players in terms of travel. And I think our postseason format would be even more appealing for entities like ESPN because you'd be playing out of the East and out of the West." All right. So looking at this expansion, we've all had this conversation. We haven't seen the league expand since 1998, where the Diamondbacks and the Tampa Bay Devil Rays came into the league. It's the longest expansion drought since the league began, and 1961 before that. And I think looking at Manfred, he's planning to retire after his term ends in 2029. That got headlines a couple months ago. He hopes to have 2 new cities by then. So looking at that map, I don't think we would have heard Manfred talk about this unless it was 2 years out. This is happening, and it's happening fast.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't expect there to be 2 expansion teams existing when he retires in 2029, but I think what he wants is a plan in place when he retires for, the process to already be rolling ahead. That's his goal. And it was striking. I mean, everyone was tweeting about it and talking about it when they caught it, because he said it so casually in his conversation with Carl Ravitch and the Sunday Night Baseball guys, which, by the way, got a little awkward at times because like they're on the outs, maybe not on the outs. And, Rob Manfred speaking is always a little awkward for whatever reason. Carl Ravitch, too, in my opinion. So it made for some awkward TV at times, but fascinating to consider what this is going to lead to. And I don't know, there's a lot of directions we can take this. Do you want to talk about the potential cities first? Do you want to talk about how realignment may look?
I mean, let's start with the realignment piece, because we can get into the expansion candidates, and I think we can dedicate a whole episode to doing just that. Looking at abandoning American versus National League, it is startling to me when you first hear it. You and I were discussing this via text, and just hearing like potentially for some spoilers that people are not looking at this, looking at some of what the divisions would look like. The Mets and the Yankees would be in the same division. So you and I are like, who's moving to the American National League? Because out of instinct, we're saying there has to be one. but there would just be an East and the West. And we've seen other sports realign. The NHL, most famously, they moved away from the conferences and they've just done East and West. And that was very shocking for some people in the beginning. But you hear a lot of the writers out there progressively talking about this, that this has a lot of silver lining for the sport. And I'm looking at this from the angle of I want to see the plan laid out for us. I do like the idea of what some of these divisions do look like, because you have to balance the conversation and the debate, tradition versus change. I mean, we have baseball entrenched with the history of the American League, the National League. 1876 when the NL was founded, 1901 when the American League. You can't make that decision overnight to get rid of them. And I have to be convinced that you have to be able to have the identities of these American League and National League really cultures woven into the sport. And you don't want to abandon all the history of the sport for just this change. And that has me worried about the sport, but I'm also very appealed by the fact that the Yankees, Mets, Phillies, and Red Sox in a Northeast division could be very, very fun.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I said to you guys so far in our fantasy chat last night when this came up. It's like, would we be looking at Phillies, Red Sox, Yankees, Mets? At the time, I put the Blue Jays in there too, not realizing this is probably going to be, if it happens. Jim Bowden put something in the Athletic today of like basically Eastern Western Conference, like you alluded to, 4 divisions in each conference, so 4 teams apiece instead of 5. So likely Red Sox, Mets, Yankees, Phillies, most likely. The part that no one, at least that I've heard talking about it yet, that fascinates me a little bit is some of these naturally lead to like a lot of big spending teams in one division and then other divisions having some really smaller selling teams. I don't know if I like that because, again, we talked about, like you mentioned 2 episodes ago, how you thought the Marlins being better than everyone thought this year is a bad thing for baseball. And unfortunately, I think you're right because it makes teams think, oh, we could do this too and just not spend that money and, convince fans it's okay because look at the Marlins. There's a part of that in this too. Like if we look at some of these proposed divisions, I'm looking right now, like for example, Mid-Atlantic of the Eastern Conference, Bowden has the Orioles, potentially a new expansion team, which we'll talk about in a minute, Pirates and Nationals. I don't really want the Orioles, Pirates, and Nationals all in the same division because they're all teams that we yell about needing to spend more money. And when they're all up against each other, it kind of lets them do that. Whereas when you're the Nationals in a division with the Mets and the Phillies, like there's only so many years that your fans are going to allow you to continue spending little money. And eventually it's like, guys, come on, we got to pony up if we want to compete. Not that they're necessarily going to listen. I mean, look at the Pirates, but that worries me a little bit. And I feel like it's an underreported part of the story. Like, is that going to lead kind of naturally to divisions of big time spenders and divisions of, cheap ownership? I don't know. Do you see any problem with that?
No, for sure. There's a lot of problems with all of that. And I also thinking fracturing some historic rivalries is a problem. Like, yes, Yankees and Red Sox will be there, but splitting up the Cubs and the Cardinals, splitting up the Dodgers and the Giants, I think those things can't be understated. That is a huge deal to baseball fans for those markets. And I agree with the other thing you're saying. I'm looking at Bowden's proposed realignment, which he used a picture of Ohtani in the Angels uniform for some odd
what was
reason.
that?
Not unsure why he did that. But a division with the Rockies, the Athletics, the Mariners, and the Giants, you're right. I mean, not having some of these big level teams challenging you to be able to spend, it's a problem. I think the most egregious one, as you mentioned, that Mid-Atlantic division with the Orioles, the Pirates, the Nationals, and potentially the Charlotte expansion team that he has in there. Maybe it's Raleigh and maybe it's someone else. But unless someone steps up to be a big spender, that you have a division that can be won. You can have a path to the playoffs by being mediocre. And we've seen that time and time again. And that's the thing we don't want. I mean, looking at this 8 division, 4-team format for the playoffs, I just think of 4 divisions of 8, they have to make sense. And there's no way of doing that without upsetting something that we all hold near and dear. But change is hard. I understand that. We're not all going to sit here and be happy with all of it. And some people were upset when the NHL moved away from it or the NBA changed the way they did things. But it has to make sense, and they have to be able to play out all scenarios to make sure it's well vetted. And hopefully by this, we have 4 years before Manfred retires. We set the clock for that. As you mentioned, we probably won't have baseball in any of these new markets quite yet, but I think those announcements would be made prior to Manfred going away. And this would be a region-based schedule. Like, I think the biggest thing that we can see is owners looking at the cost savings. because if you look at just over the year, I mean, broadcasters, league officials, I mean, all of it, the reduced travel costs and consistent national TV opportunities for all these teams, it almost seems like impossible to ignore. And especially like, again, going back to it, Manfred would have not put this on Front Street on a nationally televised game unless it was like 95 to 98% that this is happening. Microdosing our tolerance for things like this is exactly what they do on a big stage.
Yeah, he's very sneaky with that kind of stuff. But for some reason, like there's been a lot of things that I feel very like immediately passionate about, of like changes that I don't like. And people will say like old man yells at cloud sometimes with things I can't get over. And then other things I embrace slowly. This one, for some reason, doesn't strike a nerve with me right away. And maybe it should, but it doesn't. I don't know. Like I'm kind of okay with it, like a little worried about it. Like I just said, with the big spender, little spender divisions kind of possibly existing. But there's a part of me that is also open to it. Like, some of it would be really cool. I mean, man, Mets, like I keep on saying it, but Mets, Phillies, Red Sox, Yankees is crazy. Having all those fan bases, like you're going to end up hating Philadelphia as much as I hate Philadelphia. I'm going to end up hating Boston as much as you do. Like it's going to create all new just rivalry and just passion. But obviously, I mean, you mentioned Cubs, Cardinals being potentially taken apart is kind of crazy with all the history that's there. So there are some parts that are going to be a little difficult to swallow. But I know you said like maybe eventually we talk further about the potential cities that are like the expansion teams land in. But I'm looking back at a 2024 ESPN article, February 2024, where they listed potential cities. And it's fascinating to look at. And we don't have to get super in depth because we have a lot of other things to talk about today. But I just want to name them and just kind of give a couple very quick thoughts about each. When they listed it, they listed Austin or San Antonio. They listed Charlotte, which we just kind of talked about a little bit. Mexico City, which is, I know they go there every once in a while for kind of visiting games. Montreal, we all know the history of baseball in Montreal and how it got taken away. It didn't really work out. A few years ago, there was conversation about the Rays maybe splitting their games between Montreal and another city eventually. Didn't happen. Nashville has been out there a lot. Orlando, Portland. Let's see what else is here. Raleigh. I know there's a little bit of Raleigh versus Charlotte that we can talk about. San Jose, Salt Lake City. Those are the ones that come up most often. Do any of them stand out as like, to you, like absolutely this is going to be one of them? And do any of those on the list stand out to you as, yeah, that's not happening?
As far as Nashville goes, and you have these other projects, and you mentioned Raleigh, and you can go on Twitter. They actually have these campaigns that are trying to rally the forces for these teams to be here. Nashville has the Music City Baseball Foundation here, and they're widely seen as a front runner. And there's a detailed stadium proposal. You can go and look at it. They have strong financial backing. And I think the entertainment industries that could help market the team, of course, you go, Nashville has the Predators. They also have the Tennessee Titans. It's a huge college football town. It can sustain a team like that. And I think downtown Nashville would be certainly look at. Salt Lake City is interesting to me because they're aggressively pushing for a team, and there's a billionaire right now backing a proposed ballpark, and they want to do this in the Rocky Mountain corridor, which could have a huge success there. But I mean, Portland to me felt like, if I didn't read the insider reports about who would be getting a team, I think Portland, Oregon, if you look at the passion of the Portland Timbers for MLS, having parades on a weekly basis for their team, Portland Trailblazers have a very passionate fan base. They had a lot of momentum, but it seems like some political hurdles got in the way, and the stadium financing, which is a huge thing. Because I know everyone wants to talk about Vegas and how quickly that happened. They just started laying cement for or even like, I don't even know if they've had the construction plans fully realized yet for Vegas. They definitely should be underway. Honestly, I'm going with Nashville and Salt Lake City. I would love to see the nostalgia return of Montreal. I mean, the Expos left all the way in 04, and it feels like there's a void there in Canada, only having Toronto there. San Antonio is interesting to me as well. But you look at these markets that have one or two major teams, and those feel like the favorites to me. Like Carolina feels like the favorite. Having the Hornets and having the Hurricanes, they fit right in. The infrastructure's there to sustain a major league team, and you can't take that for granted.
Yeah, so to talk about Raleigh and Charlotte first, so the North Carolina options. My first thought, and this is kind of biased as a New Yorker, is I feel like there's so many like people living in North Carolina that are former New Yorkers and from other places from the Northeast too, where it's almost like, but passionate Yankee and Met fans, like, are they really going to start rooting for another team? But then I immediately question my own opinion because I'm like, look how far the Hurricanes have come. Like, playoff hockey down there, you turn that game on and it's nuts. Now, hockey stadiums takes less people to fill, so there is that as well if you really want to get into the thick of the argument. But the things I've read about Raleigh, and there's been a lot out there recently, it feels like they have built-in, ready-to-go access to this. There was a report about how successful the Braves and the area around it that they've created around Truist Park, how successful it has been financially. And the people behind Raleigh basically came out and used that and said, we have all that ready to go. The stadium can go right here, and we have the kind of surrounding things it needs to make it a huge venture right off the bat. You're not going to have to wait very long. So that was appealing to me. And I mean, there's a few people, obviously Bowden put Charlotte in, and then some people said, no, it's going to be Raleigh. So there's a kind of big in-state rivalry there between those two cities of who gets the team. But I do think that ends up being one of them. To me, Orlando jumped off the page right away because you just think like natural flow of visitors, right, with everything down there and the tourism, like they're going to do fine. But do you really give Florida a third team when their first two have struggled pretty mightily historically to gain footing with, fans coming out to the games? I don't think you can get past that with what's happened with Tampa and the Marlins. I don't think you give Florida a third team with all that history that's been a struggle for them. So I do kind of like you. I lean towards Salt Lake City. I've heard a lot about that from the get-go, that may be one of the landing spots for this. So if you put a gun to my head right now, I'd say Raleigh and Salt Lake City, but certainly there's a lot of other appealing options. I don't think Montreal and Mexico City are realistic options. I think those are cities that Major League Baseball will continue to visit every once in a while, but I don't see a team landing in either spot.
Yeah. And if you want to see the roadmap of this, take a look at this blackout map that's becoming archaic because you can watch your team via the app. And I think the blackout rules are disappearing. But if you look at the old blackout map, if you live in Raleigh or you live in the North Carolina area, the Braves are blacked out, even though Georgia is a state away. You can't sit there and watch the Braves and you can't go to the game because you live miles and miles away. So this antiquated thing, these markets have to be looked at as saying, where have you established a fan base? And the infrastructure is important too. You go outside these stadiums and be able to have, because outside of the game and the team being competitive, that's one thing. Building a culture outside the games, the bars, the restaurants, the music scene, it fuels the whole economy of a city. That's why that these cities are vying for it. That's why there's a lot of strong suitors for this. If Orlando is a suitor, you take the Rays and pull them up. Right now, the stadium situation, I know that they've had more promise as far as where they're going to go. To me, it makes more sense to move that team to Orlando.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I look at that. But personally, I think Portland, I understand like all the political hurdles to get a team there, and that will get in the way. Maybe somewhere the next crop of teams will come in. But you don't want to wait. You don't want to miss your ticket for this bus because, as we said before, 1998 was the last time we saw this. So it may be a while before they open the gates again to make it 34 instead of 32. And if you miss your ticket, too bad, so sad. And I don't know. I think Portland can sustain it as far as culturally. I think watching the Timbers, and again, a lot of people don't watch Major League Soccer, but that fan base and the rivalry between the Sounders and the Timbers, between Seattle and Portland. I mean, if you think the Padres and the Dodgers is tense, I mean, Portland and Seattle hate each other as far as fan bases go. I'd be interested to see like the metrics of, I've never been to Salt Lake City. I've never been over there. The Jazz, I want to see their numbers of how they draw, what's outside of their stadium, where would the stadium be? Nashville makes so much sense to me, and having really the bias of being around North Carolina because I have family lived there, and like, Jimmy, who's in our fantasy league, my brother, talking about really the sustainability of Charlotte versus Raleigh, and talking about Raleigh makes the most sense, especially that's where the Hurricanes play, as you mentioned. It goes back to putting a winning culture, and it's going to take time. You have to take your lumps as a new franchise. You're going to be the new game in town at first. There's a lot of people that live there. It's a transient city. You have to be able to weather that storm and eventually get people to root for you. For the Hurricanes, I think they're a perfect example. A lot of people that lived in Carolina already had their hockey team. They're the New York fans or they're Pittsburgh fans or wherever they came from. They're rooting for another team because it's already been ingrained in you. The way you establish fan bases is the infrastructure. You start making new Hurricane fans, and all of a sudden old Ranger fans become Hurricane fans because of the accessibility. And if you're winning Stanley Cups and you're competitive every single year, these things start to grow itself. That's been the problem with the Rays, is because the Rays had the success they had, and the Marlins, same thing. If you don't win on a consistent basis and you're investing in a team, people are like, I'm still going to root for my hometown team. If we know winning is contagious on both ends of the spectrum for fans and for fan bases and for the players, you look at the idea that we could be having a whole crop of people. People love winning. They'll pop on a new cat.
Mm-hmm.
If people live in Utah, yes, I'm a diehard Red Sox fan. I moved to Utah for work. If the Salt Lake City team starts ringing off wins and being the hottest thing in town, guess who's popping on a Salt Lake City jersey? I think we take for granted the loyalty of a lot of fan bases. And I guarantee you, my brother eventually will be a fan of the Raleigh team. If they move there, he'll like the Mets, but he'll also like the Raleigh team just because of proximity. If I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, just to go tie it all together, it's going to go hand in hand with the realignment if that really is going to happen. Because again, we look at Jim Bowden's Athletic article here, and we look at his proposed realignment, and this is not saying he's correct by any means. I mean, he picks two different teams than we picked. He goes with Charlotte ending up in the Mid-Atlantic with the Orioles, Pirates, and Nationals, which we talked about before being kind of lower spending teams. And then he has Nashville landing the other expansion team, also in the Eastern Conference. So it's two Eastern teams as the expansion teams. And then he has them playing in the Southeast Division with the Braves, Marlins, and Rays. Well, if he's wrong, and let's say it's not Nashville, but it's Raleigh or Charlotte, whichever one you want to pick with, and then it's Salt Lake City, so something out west more, that changes these divisions completely, because all of a sudden you have another team east, but now you need another team that fits either the Mid-Atlantic or Southeast. So it all goes together and is kind of like a puzzle. It's going to have to make sense. I mean, here's the thing. If you're going to be set on a geographic realignment, it needs to make sense. Like, you can't have one division where there's a team or two that's not actually even very close to any of the other teams. Like, that's what we have now, because it's not obsessed with location. But if you're going to strictly use location and use travel as a reason for your argument, you have to make sure it actually makes sense. So that is going to come into this conversation as well. But in the end, it's money. Like, money talks the loudest. So these cities are going to have some huge backers, some people with very deep pockets, and it's probably going to get pretty messy as far as the competition out there to land one of these teams.
Yeah, and as we wrap it up, I think the biggest thing everyone can look at, I know the NHL is not the most popular sport, but if you follow it, you've seen them shift over from the division alignment that they had to the Metro. And I feel like things have worked out very seamlessly for the natural rivalries of the teams, you know, having the Islanders and the Rangers in the Hurricanes division. And we mentioned them before, and everything going on with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Like, these games make sense as far as travel goes. And eventually you just accept the change. At first, you're going to get the pushback. People are going to be upset, but they're going to watch the games. You already have the diehard fans. It's about being able to embrace the change and get the progressive nature of encouraging new fans to come watch these games. At the end of the day, the cherished structures of the MLB have to be embraced. But similar to these City Connect jerseys, like you watch the Red Sox going around yellow jerseys, people just buy them and they accept it. You know, so this is one of those things where baseball is going to have to just push forward if they believe this is the right path for success. Let's head over to Philadelphia, and we have Zach Wheeler heading over to the IL with a blood clot. And of course, Aaron Nola made his return. And I guess the question we want to discuss is, how does it affect the Phillies World Series chances? And looking at the Wheeler absence here, definitely a tough test, because, you know, 6 weeks before October takes hold, they're World Series favorite. Zach Wheeler with that blood clot near his right shoulder. This is a season-altering development. I mean, Cy Young level performance from him, dominant playoff track record. And you look at Aaron Nola, like, okay, well, they're getting their other ace back. Well, he came back and he got dominated again, not looking like the same pitcher he was in years past. The blood clot thing is very, very concerning. No timetable for return. You're thinking of the health of a Zach Wheeler outside of the fact that we want to see him pitch well. We want him to get right, because a blood clot in the shoulder is definitely a serious situation. We knew Wheeler was the ace going in. I think this changes a lot for the Phillies. I really do. And I don't want to be hyperbolic or just like very reactionary to this, but you're looking at the matching up against the Dodgers or the Brewers or a team in a series. Without that ace in a short series, they look like a completely different team.
Well, yeah, I mean, it forces everybody to move up a spot and be in a bigger spot. We talk about that in bullpen a lot when a team loses a closer, and sometimes you're like, oh, but this guy behind him is really good, so he'll be fine. But you forget the part of the argument where it's like, well, yeah, but everyone else behind him has to step up and be better too, and sometimes that's just not how it works out. I mean, Zach Wheeler, you said it. This guy is as critical to any team as any pitcher we can really think of. He's been so damn good for so long. I just went back to 2023. We could go back longer, but since 2023, 541 and 2/3 innings pitched since 2023. That is second only to Logan Webb. So he's just been Mr. Durable out there up until now. 39 wins in that time, which also second this time to Zach Gallen, who had 40. 15.3 FWAR since 2023, which is the most amongst starting pitchers. So that puts in perspective who they are losing right now. And blood clot, as far as upper extremity blood clot, any blood clot, this is a wait and see kind of thing. He's getting more tests done apparently today, so we could know a little bit more. But he's going to be prescribed medicine most likely. And it depends how quickly the medicine works. But there's a lot of people out there that have already said this is probably season ending. Whether that means playoffs or not, we're not sure. But sometimes this can take a long time, and it's not something to play with. Like, it's like, oh, it's just a blood clot. Like, I'll come back early before I'm supposed to and be fine. Like, I don't think this is something he's going to, or his doctors are going to allow him to be risky with. And remember, Zach Wheeler came out and said just a few months ago that, like, when this contract is done, he's done. And it shocked some people because, like, if you look at what his age will be at the end of this contract, most people of his stature would look for one more. I mean, look what Max Scherzer has done, right? He just looks for one contract after the next, just doesn't want to go away. And to Scherzer's credit, like, he's held his own this year. Whole nother topic. But for Wheeler, the reason I'm bringing that up is he already kind of is thinking about his life after baseball, from what it sounds like, and his family, right? Got a young family. So, like, if there's a doctor that says, hey, man, like, this, you might want to be careful with this. I'm not saying he's going to come out and retire tomorrow, but I do think he's going to be careful. I think he's already shown with what he said in other interviews about, you know, when this contract is done, he's done. It just kind of makes you feel like, all right, sees baseball as very important. He's as good as they come, which means he's very passionate about it. But I think he's much more passionate about having a healthy life with his family going forward. So you wonder what this is going to cause. With that being said, Philadelphia, yes, I'm concerned with it because, like you said, the way they might match up with a team like the Dodgers, who now are getting their health back in the starting rotation. But if there's any team that might be prepared for this, it might be Philadelphia. They have the most FWAR from their pitchers of any team in Major League Baseball as a whole, which shows their depth, 18.3 FWAR amongst their pitching staff. The next best is 16.4. So they do have depth here. Christopher Sanchez has been as good as almost anybody. Right, Ranger Suarez is solid. I know he's had some bumps in the roads recently, but dependable guy. I think Philly fans would worry a little bit because he does tend to wear down toward the end of the season, but not bad. Aaron Nola, I know he looked bad in his first start back. It's still Aaron Nola. He's still got a lot of history on his side to think that he's going to get right. I know he looked bad in the beginning of the season too, but that was more related to health. If he truly is healthy now, I think you have to believe he's going to figure it out. And Philadelphia's in a great spot as far as, like, they're making the playoffs one way or the other. You just want to be right for the playoffs. So they have depth there. You wonder if Andrew Painter is going to get put into the mix now because of this. They were set to go into a 6-man rotation with Nola coming back before the Wheeler injury. Now, obviously, Wheeler not going to be there. So do they still look to do a 6-man rotation and call a guy like Painter up, or do they let that go and just go to the 5-man rotation? We'll see how they handle that. The one thing you will say, they did trade some pitching away at the deadline. Mick Abel goes to Minnesota. He, I think, has mostly pitched for the AAA team there and has looked very, very good. He showed he could pitch in Philadelphia a little bit. I kind of had up and down starts, but in a way, I'm sure some of the front office would love to have him here right now for this situation, although the guy they gained, Johan Duran, has been fantastic for them, so maybe not. All being said, devastating injury. But I do think there's some things to look at and be like, I think we could be okay in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and then also looking at just the scope of, like, how desperate do they get. I think Nola is the X factor here. I don't think they want to hear that. Philly fans don't want to think about that, but he is. But if you look at him, the grand stage of what he's done, 180 innings plus for 6 straight years, 32 plus starts, typically durable. If you look at this as a blip on the radar for an Aaron Nola, the fractured rib, an ankle sprain, 3 months. He hasn't been the same. Maybe he needs to get right, and they can figure out a way to get him back to Aaron Nola form. Because if he gets back to where he was in, let's say, 2021, 2022, that's a completely different pitcher that you can rely on. Having Chris Sanchez, having Ranger Suarez, their relief group, you mentioned with Duran and having the ability to have high leverage relievers, shoulder more innings, they can give them length if needed. but it will go down to Nola. I look at a guy like Gage Wood from Arkansas that they got in the draft this year. Do they take a shot and bring him up there as a fire thrower? It's unclear how much he enters the conversation. But again, if they look at this window, we mentioned the Phillies' desperation to win right now with this group, especially with the looming free agents and aging players. Do they want to throw everything at the wall and say, let's get one more crack at this in October? And if Gage Wood has to be out there pulling a Paul Skeens, like maybe that's the case. And like you said, Andrew Painter and Gage Wood look electrifying for NCAA. So like you with what he did at Arkansas, would he not provide a spark that they can look forward to? I'm not saying throw him in the rotation, maybe bring him out for high leverage in October.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't even mention Jesus Luzardo. Like, he's another guy. He's been mostly great this year. Yes, when he goes bad, he goes really bad, which is a little scary. If you're a Philly fan, Luzardo and Nola can be very good, but you also worry about them. Ranger Suarez can be very good, but you also have seen moments where he's kind of worn down at the end. But on a whole, if you see Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, Aaron Nola, Jesus Luzardo, those four right there are better than most teams' rotations right off the bat. You can't deny that. Like that is a better group of four guys than most other teams' top four easily. So with that being said, like you still have Bryce Harper there and Kyle Schwarber and a pretty good offense when they're going right. So you still got to feel like you're one of the best teams in the major leagues. But there's no overstating. Losing a Zach Wheeler is one of the best pitchers in the league for a long, long time now.
So going with some of these younger players, and we saw a lot of the debuts, and for your New York Mets, we had Nolan McLean making his debut, looking very impressive with a line of 5 1/3, 2 hits, 0 runs, 4 walks, and 8 strikeouts and a 3-1 lead and 3-1 win, I should say. And this is a guy was dazzling. And you heard all of the conversation about the Mets behind the scenes of not going out there and looking at free agents as far as big name pitchers because they knew that the reinforcements were coming. And Nolan McLean definitely righted the ship and been like, okay, we're really excited about this. I mean, against the Mariners lineup that looked every bit as formidable on the lead up to playing and doing what they did, he provided a huge jolt where the depth is critical for the Mets. And this was a point in the season where it was do or die. The Mets were on the line here of figuring out a way to what's going to have to change things. And maybe a Nolan McLean coming up here and rejuvenating this not only the rotation, but maybe this whole roster, like this young kid's coming up here and he's doing it. Why can't we pull our weight and all getting it going?
Yeah, there's no reason to say he's not the real deal at this point. You know what I thought was funny? Most teams try to get a player's debut, like a high prospect player. They try to have them debut on a soft landing spot on the road when the team is playing well. The Mets did the exact opposite. They're at home with a bunch of fans that are as restless as possible because they're losing every single day. That's how Nolan McLean debuted, and he did exactly what the Mets needed him to do. 5 1/3, like you said, probably could have finished that, to be honest. Mendoza gets booed when they pull him, and Mendoza even said, "Yeah, I probably would have booed myself as well if I'm a fan there." So he looked the part, dude. His stuff, if we just want to talk stuff, is incredible. The spin he can put on the ball is as good or better than any pitcher in the league right now, legitimately. His sweeper is a hell of an out pitch. The only thing I saw as an observer was like, he's got to trust his fastball a little more. It's pretty good fastball. Let's throw it in the zone more. There's too much out of the zone stuff, and he still went a decent spot into the game. So if this is going to be a guy, and we need guys that consistently can go 6 or more at this point, he's going to need to trust that fastball because people are going to end up realizing he's not throwing his fastball in the zone. So I'm going to sit on A or B or C, and you got to adapt. I trust Hefner in that way with a young pitcher, our pitching coach. So I think he's going to be okay. I wouldn't be surprised to see Sproat join the party at some point. I don't know if that's going to take an injury or if they're going to force the issue. I mean, we saw Clay Holmes again yesterday struggle to get deep into games. So there may be a point where they decide to put Holmes in the bullpen, whether it's workload or just like this dude cannot get consistently through the 5th or the 6th inning or ever the 6th. But so I think Brandon Sproat joins the party eventually. There's a part of me, dude, and I know this is ridiculous, and if I was listening to someone say this on a podcast, I'd probably be rolling my eyes. But like watching Nolan McLean and watching as many of the other guys as I have, unless Senga or Minaya really get it together this next month and a half, like I'd put Nolan McLean out there in a game 1 in a playoff series. Seriously, I know it sounds dumb, and obviously he needs more starts on top of that to continue proving himself. But like I've been so unimpressed with this pitching staff for a long time. I know Peterson is able to give us innings, but he's kind of taken some lumps lately too. That's, to me, he looked like, as far as just pure stuff, the guy I would fear the most as an opposing team in a game one. But we'll see. But I mean, I want to talk about not just my guy. It's been a really fun week as far as like seeing guys get called up or get called to the next level. So McLean, obviously, big impact. I think he's going to be huge for the Mets down the stretch, one way or the other. Samuel Basallo, who we've been talking about forever, seemingly, but is still only 21 years old. Dude looks the part, is friggin' huge. Finally gets the call to the Orioles. What do you expect?
Hit by a pitch in his first at bat too, which is
welcome to the bigs,
dude. I mean, number one prospect, number 8 overall, and one of the most hyped catch and prospects in Major League history. 1 for 4 against the Astros. It makes sense for him to be up here. This is the time of year we see some of these young players, and you don't want them to be toiling in the minors when they've already done everything they do there. And that's the case with Basallo. He's ready to be at the big league level. Give them a reason to come out to Camden with a lost season. And like I said, looking forward to see how he fits into this roster going forward. Where is he going to play? Is he going to be a full-time catcher? Are they going to try to transition him to a different position like first base? By all accounts, this is a guy that you can build a whole franchise around. And we also had Dylan Beavers coming up as well. His first hit in the 9th innings, a double. So he dominated AAA. Beavers' numbers are insane. 304, 420 slash line with 18 home runs, 23 stolen base, 94 games. It's the latest wave of young talent, and we are excited for what the Orioles will bring to the table. But the same question looms is how can they add to this? How can they make it make sense in the offseason? So you can be excited for Beavers and Basallo, but if you want to have a little restraint about what you feel about what the Orioles are doing, because they're trying to sell everybody on this was just a down year, Murphy's Law, everything that went wrong could have went wrong. We're going to be fine next year. They still have to invest in the infrastructure of this team. They have no problem drafting and bringing this talent to the table. It's about the functionality of this team and having it across the line. There's no reason that we should be watching the Orioles playing as a last place team this year. It's just unacceptable.
It is unacceptable, and it takes away from something that should be so exciting. Basallo debuts. This is the lineup. Fully homegrown. How cool is that? 1-9. Jackson Holliday, Jordan Westberg, Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rushman, Colton Cowser, Samuel Basallo, Kobe Mayo, Dylan Beavers, Jeremiah Jackson. 1-9. That's amazing. And it should be exciting. It should be something we talk positively about every damn day. But the pitching staff and the management has gone so poorly. They're going to get some guys back. Bradish apparently has looked really good in his rehab assignment. Maybe we'll see him here soon. Healthy again. All things, go well, hopefully. So they'll have some guys coming back, but we've talked about it and we'll continue to talk about it in the offseason. They're going to need to fortify that rotation, fortify the bullpen, because that should be such a fun team to watch. Go sign Framber Valdez, who, by the way, expressed some frustration with his Houston teammates this past week for not giving him very much time in the dugout between innings because they made out so quickly. I thought that was interesting. He's a free agent to come. There's some decent pitching options as far as becoming free agents. You got to get at least one of them, if not two, and maybe come up with some interesting trades here. But psyched to see Basallo, even though I just recently traded him away in fantasy after a long time owning him. And then other things to mention. 2 of the biggest prospects get promoted to Double-A, which to some people might not be a big deal, like, Double-A. Dude, once you get to Double-A, you start feeling pretty close. We see how quickly these guys are coming up now. Connor Griffin, Leo DeVries for the Athletics and the Pirates. Really cool to see them so young still at the Double-A level now. They have just produced everywhere they went. So, there's a real shot sometime next year we see one, if not both of these guys in a major league uniform.
Yeah, I like Leo DeVries going through the system here. He is going to be the face of this quote-unquote rebuild in Sacramento and eventually Vegas. This is a guy you can be really excited about, just 18 years old, ranked number 3 overall by MLB Pipeline. One of the highest rated prospects ever traded at a deadline, bar none. And we don't see it often, but truly it's a franchise-altering type of player, and you better hope the Mason Miller thing works out for the Padres because this is the real deal with the bat. First, Connor Griffin, promoted to Double-A Altoona, as you mentioned. His 2025 stats at low A and high A, just remarkable. This is a guy who's ready for the next level, as you mentioned. Wouldn't shock me to see him going out there to start AAA, maybe even this year. I mean, it's possible. Maybe Major League Baseball, he'll break camp with the team. Why not? This is a guy who's drafted 9th overall only a year ago, and there's a lot of conversation about his hit tool while playing shortstop, and everyone's like, the defense is there, is the bat there? Well, I think he's quieted all doubters at this point. He rose to be ranked number 1 as the number 1 prospect in all Baseball America. He is on track for a meteoric rise in baseball. And if I'm the Pirates, I'm his fans, this is a guy you might want to lock up right now. Like if you can pull off what the Braves have done, find a way to throw life-changing money at him and his family right now, this is a guy you have to invest in and maybe lock him up for the next 5-6 years and have a team-friendly deal if he's willing to take it, unproven, because it's all about potential right now with him. But if you're the Pirates, you can't let a guy like Connor Griffin leave after Paul Skeens, because Paul Skeens right now, you can just consider him gone. You have to lock up Griffin. They probably should have locked up Skeens before he even took the field, but his meteoric rise was way quicker than anyone could have expected.
Yeah, and just a few notes on some other guys. It's, again, exciting time of promotions. Travis Bazzana was recently promoted to AAA in the Cleveland organization, so now he feels like one heartbeat away, if you want to say, to the big league club. Former number 1 pick here just a while ago. People seem to forget about him already. It's crazy how quickly the news cycle goes. The Mets just a week or so ago promoted several AA guys to AAA. Carson Benj, if you don't know him, get excited about him, whether you're a Met fan or not. Has kind of just keeps on hitting every level he goes to. Has picked up kind of right where he left off in AA at the AAA level. Jonah Tong has made his AAA debut and once again looked absolutely dominant, 9 strikeouts. And then just to mention a couple of kind of, I would say, almost post-hype guys that are making their impact here down the stretch. The Braves' Hurston Waldrep has now made 3 starts. We kind of forgot about him. Got called up like too soon last year and didn't look great. And now I feel like it's a more appropriate time where he's actually ready. He's made 3 starts, 5 2/3, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, 6 innings, 1 run, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts, 6 innings, no runs, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. So it just seems like every start gets better. And that's huge if you're a Brave fan, because you're looking for next year, right? And you can start being like, all right, well, if we have Waldrep and maybe Spencer Strider a little further removed from the injury, actually looks like himself, Chris Sale coming back, like, oh, we actually have some things to feel like, oh, we're going to kind of be good again next year, or if everyone can stay healthy this time. And then Cade Cavalli, who's had a long, frustrating road of injury every time he seems to get close to the bigs, has come out here, I believe has made 3 starts, looks really good in 2 of them. And the guy's got strikeout stuff, can throw hard. So he's another name to watch. If you're not a big prospect person, we just gave you about, I don't know, anywhere between 5 and 10 names that you should absolutely be paying attention to.
Let's head over to Milwaukee here, as we saw the Brewers' 14-game winning streak finally snapped in a 10-inning, 3-2 loss to the Reds on Sunday. This ends a 2.5 week stretch in which Milwaukee looked Devin fucking unstoppable. I mean, even in defeat, the mood in the clubhouse, you saw Christian Yelich broke the silence with the message, said, forget it, let's come back and do it again tomorrow. And the post game, they had some reggae music playing on. That seems to be the tenor of what's going on in Milwaukee. And how could you not be happy? They've won 29 of its last 34. Of course, they had to lose eventually. But, I mean, some lessons we can take away from this. You look at the depth of them, and you watch it firsthand watching the Mets play them. They win in different ways. They can win with power. They can win with speed. They can win with run prevention, clutch home runs. The bullpen nearly covered 13 1/3 innings in the first two games of the Red Series. They're being leaned on extensively here. And Sunday, they were depleted, and they still almost won that game. Pitching loads are being managed carefully with Milwaukee trying their best to be over there. Tobias Meyer is filling out some critical innings. And you look at them as far as a staff, they lead innings pitched as far as all of MLB, their staff. They near the top of the ERA, 3.42. There's a foundation in place for them. And you got to mention the clutch thing, because even though that they lost this game, Contreras hit a 9th-inning home run, just showing more evidence that Milwaukee never feels out of a game. I mean, you go back to the 8-0 game that they came back with about a week ago at this point, but every time you see they're down, it feels like they're always coming back, and late rallies and flipping games. And if it wasn't for the Manfred man, they could have walked away with this game here with the Reds just like kind of cashed in the extra innings and did what they did. There's a chemistry building here. And I understand that this loss probably stings a little bit for a Milwaukee fan, because again, it was right there. Could have been 15 straight, but the big picture right now, they own the best record in baseball, the longest winning streak in franchise history, and now they're heading into a crucial series, which is playing out right now, the doubleheader with the Cubs today, where they are currently leading 3-0 in the bottom of the 7th, where they're trying their best to just put the Cubs out of their misery as far as the division goes. If it's not already out of reach, looking at where it's at with 8 games that they've accomplished over here. More importantly, I mean, there's a belief in this team. This is not just a hot stretch for them. They believe in everything that's going on here, whether it's being fueled by Bob Uecker or just the chemistry on this team, the young players. The Brewers are for real. And I'm going to be very curious to watch how this plays out in October and the way this goes out, because, man, they are exciting to watch on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and Freddie Peralta in that game, 6 shutout innings, six shutout innings for Milwaukee against their arch rival, the Cubs, who they just continue to seemingly demoralize. Meanwhile, Cade Horton, who had been incredibly steady for the Cubs, just wasn't giving up runs at all. Only goes 2 2/3 today. I haven't seen any notes on why that outing was so short. I mean, he threw 61 pitches, only gave up the 1 run and 4 hits. So you got to hope maybe it's just workload, young guy right there. I don't know. We'll look during the episode to see if there's any injury note there. That would be absolutely devastating for the Cubs, who did not make a big move for a starting pitcher. Then Soroka, who is basically their quote unquote big move, gets hurt right away. Tyone's going to try to come back here. Like, they're in trouble if they lose another dude in the starting rotation. Like, they still probably are going to make the playoffs, but if they might go limping into that. So like you said, the Brewers just seem to kind of move on, and they're going to start another streak here. A couple things. You mentioned William Contreras. I said last episode, I think after they just demoralized the Mets in a sweep, and Contreras was incredible. He's had such a down year and a really good Brewers year. If he finds it, the league is in trouble, and he's found it. Since August, all of August, he leads all catchers and RBIs with 16. That's not including anything he may have done today. He's hitting .328 in the month of August, slugging .623, 5 home runs. So he's found it. That's a problem for the rest of the league because they're already killing it kind of without him doing much at all. A couple other things about it. First loss in August, which is incredible. First loss of the month. I did find some things interesting because I was trying to find, like, have they been like at least a little lucky here, and a little bit, like not enough to make you think like the whole thing is luck. Like 14 games is not going to be luck, but the odds of them winning some of these games is pretty incredible. They had a 339 BABIP in August so far, which is easily first in the league. So maybe a little bit of luck, but also to counter that, the second lowest K percentage. So shows you putting the ball in play is helpful. Things happen, especially when you have some speed, you put some pressure on the defense. 532 slugging percentage, which is eye-opening, best in the bigs in August. That's not something you tie to the Brewers. So it's not just being fast and annoying. Like, they have hit for power in the month of August. 309 batting average, the only team in the 300s for the month of August as a team. Now, on the luck side, opposing teams against the Brewers had a 256 BABIP, which is 4th worst. So basically, they got a little more good luck, and their teams they were playing got a little more bad luck. So you can bring the luck into it a little bit. But overall, like you said, just clutch. When you give them an opening to win a game, they take it every single time. I do think some of that's going to even out eventually, right? They're not going to continue to win all those close games, and it's going to be hard to continue coming back consistently over and over and over. And there is a little wonder of, like, are they peaking too soon? You want to peak and go crazy right as the playoffs are about to begin. So I think that's going to be a conversation, fair or unfair.
And I know everyone wants to discuss the Brewers, and how could you not? Like we said, a magical carpet ride that we watched go down. Just want to make note of Cincinnati sitting at 65 and 60. They are within reach of this NL wildcard spot. They're the only MLB team yet to be swept in 2025. So There's something to what Terry Francona has put ingrained in this team that they believe. And yes, they're not sexy. They're not doing what the Brewers are doing. Hell, they're not even doing what the Cubs are doing. It's just what we see Terry Francona do over time, be able to get his claws in a team and make them identify with who he is. We'll watch that in Cleveland in real time. Of course, go back to this time with Boston. There's a real energy in Cincinnati. And I know that's not the story here. We're talking about the win streak, but we definitely have to give some note to the Reds. I mean, they pounced on this, and they easily could have been swept here. And if things went wrong, you could have put your head down, especially when you saw William Contreras hit that home run. It's like, oh, Brewers win again, but the Reds figure out a way to get it going. So there's a belief in this team as far as the Brewers go, but there's also a belief in Cincinnati that they can get there when the going gets tough, and they're going to be a tough out if they get there in October. So personally, I'm rooting for it. Terry Francona, one of the class acts in all of baseball. We'll see how that plays out. And can you imagine Cincinnati baseball getting some postseason stuff and watching what goes on there? It's exciting for a market like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't root for them because they're trying to take my Metsies spot. I would want, like, the Reds are a team I enjoy. I like all of their players. You got to love Francona. But obviously, as a hardcore Met fan, they're on our tail. So I have to kind of root against it. But you're right. No one wants to see that team in the playoffs because you get a healthy Hunter Green out there. You get Lodolo back healthy. Andrew Abbott, the unsung hero. I put a post out yesterday, like, could he be the streak breaker? And I know it ends up not being that way as far as wins and losses, but he was what kind of led to that. He shut the Brewers, the hottest team in the bigs, shut them down. He's been incredible. So it's a rotation you don't necessarily want to see in a short series, but yeah, I mean, they got some fun teams in that division, and I think the Brewers are going to keep on rolling. The Cubs, especially with Pete Crow Armstrong really scuffling, Kyle Tucker getting
Tucker, dude, come on.
booed. Like, it's getting a little I don't know, a little hairy in Chicago.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I'll little of allusion to what I have for my ice cold. I have all the numbers for the last 15 days for one Kyle Tucker that has been alarming for a lot of people out there. Alarming for him too. He's a free agent. He wants to end the season on a good way. But let's head over to Arizona right now. There's some conversation about Ketel Marte, and we know that he's been pretty much the heartbeat of the Diamondbacks lineup, especially as they made some moves at the trade deadline to get rid of their players that were mainstays in the lineup. And one of the more consistent offensive performers and really a cornerstone of when they had their postseason runs. But according to a report from Nick Picaro from the Arizona Republic, some of Marte's teammates have been growing frustrated with him to the point where they've openly wondered whether the team would be better off moving on. So you go before the All-Star break and then after it, Marte missed the first 3 games of the second half following a burglary at his Arizona home. During the break, he reported $400,000 stolen items, and this was a news story in Arizona. We kind of got it over here on the East Coast a little bit later. Marte spent much of the break in his native DR rather than in Scottsdale. And while his absence didn't really cost the Cubs, the D-backs went 3-0 in those games. A lot of the teammates, Devin, were very irritated about this, especially given the team was trying to convince the front office to buy or at least not sell at the deadline. And then looking at this, there's been some complaints about Marte frequently requesting days off from Torey Lovullo, and the clubhouse were, looking at the multiple players left wondering if their own jobs or futures were secure. And like, he's sitting there and just saying, like, there's a lack of commitment. Like, we don't believe this guy is here for us. Where do you take from this? Because there was a lot of looking at Marte being the guy they invest in. And if you look at it from really the outsider perspective, you look at his production remaining elite and seeing a lot of the numbers, ranked second most productive player on the roster. At this moment, he's averaging 141 games played over the last 3 seasons. So it wouldn't really stick out at you in the back of a baseball card that he's not playing, because it's pretty much what we see with a lot of players, especially in this modern day. What are your thoughts on this? Because clubhouse dynamics can be tricky, because when frustration seems really more cultural than the stats on the back of a baseball card, maybe they look to trade him in the offseason if this is not the right fit.
Yeah, very, very surprised was my reaction. And I also wondering, especially as more and more kind of happens here, like, is it actually true, or is this like 1 or 2 players in the clubhouse that don't really get along with Marte, and or one reporter got his claws in them, and suddenly he's kind of making a bigger story out of something that's not as big. What's strange to me is, like, some of the stuff that's happened with Marte this year, you have to feel bad for him, whether it be heckled by that guy about his mom who had just recently passed, who kind of affected him and his mental health, and then the robbery of his house, which seems completely understandable to maybe miss some games for that if you're spooked by things, right? So that's what stood out to me at first. I mean, if he's actually on the block, you're looking at a perennial all-star that everybody in the league would want a shot at. From 2023 until now, Marte's in the top 10 in OPS, the top 10 in WRC plus, the top 10 in FWAR, the top 10 in slugging percentage. Like, we could go on and find a lot of things to show you how good Ketel Marte is. He's one of the best hitters on the planet. He just is. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So if they're really saying, this guy has been a pain in the ass in the clubhouse, which seems shocking based on what we see on the eye test, I mean, there's going to be no shortage of suitors. With that being said, there's a part of me that's just not buying this. You had Gerardo Perdomo, along with Lovullo right there kind of next to him, address the media and basically in very strong words say, like, leave Ketel Marte alone. Like, he's gone through enough. I thought that was interesting to see. Perdomo, usually a relatively quiet dude that has just been unbelievably productive this year, to have him stand in front of the camera there and just say that out loud. I thought that was a statement, and it does make me feel like this might be a story that is being blown out of proportion by 1 or 2 people. But I've also seen people saying, like, worst kept secret in the bigs, he's going to be on the trade market. Like, really? Did I miss something? All the wordage seems very strange to me.
It just speaks to really where we're at in the East Coast and how Arizona's really the market doesn't get as much coverage, because when this comes to the surface, it's been brewing for quite some time. the frustration, you go both sides. Like, I agree with you. There's been a lot of bad luck on his end and the things that went on. But when the one thing that did resonate with me was the fact that you look at this team at a pivotal point, and I'm sure the players were trying to convince them to buy in, because you watched that magical ride they had just coming short in the World Series a few years back. And they're looking at this core of being largely able to contend. You watch Corbin Carroll continue to do what he does. You mentioned Perdomo being just as productive. Marte this year, like, very, very good season from him. You look at this team they want to be invested in, but watching them sell, they think maybe him not being there. But again, you look at the market, that maybe it's just the culture that's been manifest in the team, where, like you said before, maybe there's a couple guys there that don't like him, or there's like one or two people that are complaining, and then the writer from the Arizona Republic took it and ran with it. That's what has me thinking, because these are stories that have legs of its own and start walking in a different direction, where you have to get ahead of it pretty quickly, because it's almost like pro wrestling, like where you get like a work is a work and all of a sudden a work is a shoot, because they're like working too hard. And it just becomes all of this conversation of all of a sudden, like, all these things come to fruition. And it all started with an article from Nick Precor from the Arizona Republic. And all of a sudden this is actually a real thing where you're watching him be shipped out of town. But if he does get shipped, like you said, we could be looking at a huge package coming their way in the offseason. Something has to change for sure. But I mean, looking at what Arizona has, like, he feels just as important. 31 years old. This is like one of the more offensive second basemen in all of baseball, a switch hitter, power, patience, and he's under a team control, club-friendly contract, really. If you look at and talk about value of a guy, he feels like he's a guy you would want on your team. And I mean, come on, you look at the rest of the league about other players that people look the other way for some character concerns. Ketel Marte certainly doesn't strike me as such.
No, not at all. My biggest thing is the reason I don't think he'll actually be traded, and maybe I'm completely off on this, but I just don't think you're getting equal value for Ketel Marte. I don't think you're getting equal value in any way, shape, or form. And you've already torn it down a little bit. And Arizona, their front office has been nothing but like out front of saying, like, we're going to continue to be aggressive. We're going to, everything we sold away, we're going to put it right back into play and use it for other people. Like, they haven't made it seem like, oh no, we're going to kind of tear it down further. Like, they seem to be hopeful that they get right back in the mix next year. Trading away Ketel Marte, a superstar, is not the way to do that.
No, I agree with that. And we talk about superstars returning to the field. We got Yordan Alvarez nearing his return for more than 3.5 months on the IL. He's finally close to rejoining the Astros. And Joe Espada came out and said he's going to begin a rehab assignment on Tuesday at AA Corpus Christi. So Dana Brown is talking about this to the media, saying that he's set to play Tuesday, rest on Wednesday for a medical eval, and then play again on Thursday and Friday. So we're looking at an activation day potentially with the Astros for August 26th, where they open the series against the Rockies. He potentially could be activated sooner than that on Saturday in Baltimore if he responds well to the first 3 rehab games. But you go to the injury timeline, you're very familiar with it because you are a proud owner of Yordan Alvarez in fantasy. Early May, we got that IL stint for the right hand inflammation. End of May, he got some live BP. We looked at it, and then he got renewed soreness, so they shut him down again. They revealed a slight fracture in his right ring finger from the MRI. Go to early July, more soreness led to a 60-day IL stint, and then he got 2 injections to reduce the inflammation. And then we find ourselves in mid-August, where he restarted the hitting progression, faced some live pitching at Houston Spring Training Complex, and then he was cleared for this aforementioned full rehab assignment. He's much needed in this roster. They've done a lot here, and we like what the Astros have done. We talk about Milwaukee having understated contributors all season. The Astros have done the same exact thing here, figuring out a way to just continue to win, sitting at first place in the AL West. They're doing what they do, but he was known for starting slow in past seasons, and his performance was expected to climb, but it never really got able to get there because of the injuries derailing any chance to stabilize. So this is a guy, 3-time All-Star, one of the more feared hitters in baseball. If his return comes at this time for the Houston Astros, and again, we've had him start up. He started the car, ready to drive out the driveway, and they shut him down again. So we don't want to get too excited until we see it happen when he throws on that uniform over there in Daikin Park for the Astros. But 38 games remaining. This is a guy over there that could be a huge, almost like an addition to the roster, that like a jolt in the arm for like mid-season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm skeptical of whether he's actually going to make it back because of all the starts and stops you mentioned. And this thing seems very sensitive as far as like, all of a sudden it's inflamed again or this or that. But like you said, let's remind everybody, if they do get him back, who exactly they're getting back. We're going to eliminate 2025 because he's barely been on the field. But if you look at 2021 to 2024, 296 batting average in that time, which is tied for fourth best, only behind Aaron Judge, Freddie Freeman, Luis Arias. Okay, a 571 slugging percentage over the last 4 seasons. Fourth best, only behind Trout, Ohtani, and Judge. These are pretty good names to be a part of. A 165 WRC plus over that same span. Second best, only behind Aaron Judge, ahead of Shohei Ohtani. A 958 OPS is good for third best in that 4-year span. Ohtani and Judge, only people above him. The dude can do everything you need him to do at the plate, right? Never been much of a fielder at all, but he can spray the ball to all fields. He can hit for power. He can hit for average. He can do everything. So if he's correct, if he's right, getting a guy like Yordan Alvarez in the middle of that lineup is as close as you're going to get to getting an Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani. Like, that's how good this dude is when he's right. It's amazing that the Astros have actually kept their head above water for Yordan actually to have a chance to still impact the playoff race. Like, they've done more than kept their head above water, actually. It's amazing that they've been atop of that division without him and so many other guys they've lost and the injuries they've faced. It's a tribute and a testament to that organization and the players like Jose Altuve that are out there every single day. Incredible. So, yeah, you can't overstate how big this would be. But if you're an Astro fan, you probably shouldn't be holding your breath with how this has gone, the back and forth of this injury.
Yeah, we mentioned the division lead. They're sitting a game and a half up on the Seattle Mariners, who are right there on their tails. It was a sizable lead. This may be coming at the perfect time. They've been 14-20 over their last 34 games, so they're maybe fizzling out. That magic dust needs to be sprinkled. And what better jolt could the team get than a Yordan Alvarez if he's there? But again, if he's there, as we mentioned, there's been a lot of start-stops. So I think every plate appearance from here on out could weigh heavily in whether the Astros hold on to this AL West or slipping to a wild card chase, and Alvarez gives them a better chance to win. Just this fact, it resets the lineup, as you mentioned. Even if he is cold to begin the season, just having his presence in the lineup, you pitch to everyone differently around him because he just has that presence. He's one of the top hitters in all of baseball. But let's head to red hot and ice cold and talk about who has had it going and who's like Kyle Tucker, keeping it ice cold. All right, so for red hot and ice cold, I have 2 offensive players to discuss. I'm going to start with the Miami center fielder, Jacob Marcy, 49 at-bats. He's been scorching at the plate in the last week or so, 15 days to be exact, tallying 7 runs, 4 home runs, and 15 RBIs. He's also been stealing some bases. So looking at his slash line, 367, 426, 755, his OPS well over 1,000, and he's doing it with a lot of patience and power. So not a lot of gaudy numbers will jump out at you, but I think the balance is what we're seeing. We get some power, some speed from him. He's a young player to be very excited about, getting the opportunity to play in Miami, and we saw him firsthand against the Yankees. So looking at some of your fantasy leagues, you're looking for a player to pick up if he's somehow still available. 2/3 of leagues, 33% rostered in most leagues. If he's not rostered, go and pick him up because he could be a under-the-radar pickup at the moment for you guys down the stretch.
Yeah, all truth be told, I was going to go Marcy as well. I thought there was a chance we might both have him with how ridiculous he's been since his debut, but I'll give you just the picture I had. And this is more of a long-term thing. I was close to going with Jacob Lopez, who's been crazy since the All-Star break. I posted about him the other day. He's been fantastic. Andrew Abbott, who we mentioned and kind of praised a little bit. I could have given you him as well. I'm going Noah Cameron. Not enough people are talking about what this kid has done in his rookie season. Now 17 starts into his career, his rookie year, which is I was almost shocked. I'm a fantasy holder of his, and that actually took me by surprise that he's made that many starts already. Not getting nearly enough love. He's gone 6 or more innings in 9 of his 17 starts. Very impressive for a younger guy. A lot of times, those innings and those starts are limited. He has not been one of them. He's been able to go deeper into games. 2.47 ERA in almost 100 innings of work now. I believe it's like 98 and a third. 1.06 whip. So like that amount of innings and those stats, you can't sit there and be like, oh, small sample size. Not at this point. Like, he's proven himself 100%. 7 wins, leads all rookie starting pitchers with 50 or more innings in ERA. So you got to love it. And it's been huge for the Royals, who, again, are just like barely able to kind of stay on the fringe of the playoff race here. Had a good sweep over the weekend. And if it wasn't for a guy like Noah Cameron, who's been able to hold it together, like, I don't think they'd be there, because we've seen Seth Lugo take a turn. I'm going to talk about him in a minute on the other side. So a guy like Noah Cameron has stepped up and has been a very stable, maybe not dominant, and maybe that's why people don't talk about him that much. It's not like sexy, blow you away stuff, but very, very steady, consistent.
Looking at my other hot hitter over here, Juan Soto, it looks to be coming alive at the plate at the right time. And across his last 46 at bats, 12 runs scored, 5 home runs, 8 RBIs, 4 stolen bases. So, I mean, looking at his stretch right now, feels like he's rediscovering a little bit of a rhythm. You talk about how his game's changing a little bit. He's stealing some more bases. We've seen just sharper swings, and then the plate discipline seems a little bit better, and pitchers seem a little bit more uncomfortable to pitch to him. So I think this is coinciding for the Mets at the right time. I think injecting some life into the heart of the lineup with Soto is important to what they're doing here. And they're going to go with Soto. So they need Soto. They need Lindor to do their thing. And to see this from Soto, you're getting a little bit excited. It hasn't been a down year at all. If you look at Soto's and open up the hood and take a look at what's been going on, a lot of people are very critical of Soto. A lot of the numbers you see, it just looks different. He's contributed in different ways. But I still think Soto, the best of Soto in a Mets uniform for 2025 is yet to be seen. And I think we're on the stretch to get it.
Yeah, I think what it is with Soto is everyone's comparing to last year, which was a career year for him, like just a ridiculous year. If you look at season by season, he didn't do what he did last year every other year. Last year was way above. Like, he's always been really, really good, consistent. But last year in a Yankee uniform, it was insane. But he's overall been who he's supposed to be. I think Mets fans and baseball fans are just waiting for some of those moments where there's guys on base in a critical moment. Maybe you're down by a run or two. He's lacking that a little bit. Like those big, big moments in those clutch spots with men on base. I think once he has some of those moments, people will lay off a little bit. For my ice colds, one is pretty obvious, and we kind of predicted it a little bit. I don't want to pat ourselves on the back that much, but Eugenio Suarez struggled once he's been back in Seattle. We've talked about it a little bit over the last few weeks, so bigger sample size now. He's been there for a little while. In the last 2 weeks, he's hitting 149 with a 36.5% K rate, striking out a lot. 2 homers in that time. You need a little bit more. You got him for the power. It's a little disappointing. He's still got time to make an impact there, but you expect more from what some people saw as the crown jewel of the trade deadline. And on the pitching side, I alluded to it a minute ago. Seth Lugo, another one of my fantasy guys. He's been killing me here as I scratch and claw and try to get the final playoff spot in our league. I'm going to need him. I think tomorrow he starts to turn it around. Please, Seth. 7.42 ERA in his last 6 starts, worst in the league in that time. 7.42. 4.75 walk per 9, third worst in the league. 2.37 home run per 9, fourth worst in the league. He's had a problem giving up home runs all year, but for a long time we were saying that's his only weakness. You can't walk a bunch of dudes while you're also giving up home runs. That's a recipe for a disaster. In fact, that's a recipe for a 7.42 ERA.
So moving ahead to Kyle Tucker for my eyes cold, and we don't want to pile on the guy. He went 0 for 4 again today in the first half of the doubleheader against the Brewers. He's hit a wall in recent weeks. The last 42 at bats, I mean, you can extend it to 46 at bats right now. He's managed just 4 hits with no home runs, 1 RBI, and 2 steals. And the line is just not Kyle Tucker light. 167, 271, 167 slash line, a 438 OPS. This is far off from the usual all-star form that we've seen from him. And his strikeouts are outpacing production, 10 strikeouts to 4 hits during this stretch here. There's a glaring issue with Tucker. Not sure what this is. And I think relying on his bat in the middle of the order for the Cubs has been essential for their success. And I think free agency wise, this is affecting Tucker as well. I don't think it's going to lure teams away from investing in a player like Tucker. He's still going to get paid handsomely, and I think he has time to get going, but his track record suggests this is just temporary. But right now he looks severely out of rhythm, and maybe the boos and Wrigley are getting to him as well. He's rolling over pitches that he's normally driving, and if you're watching him, he's not really generating hard contact. So we're all waiting for a rebound, and I think it's very troubling to see what Tucker's doing. But as far as my other ice cold, I have Drew Gilbert in San Francisco. Rough stretch for the start here. 3 for 22 with a lone run scored, a lone home run, and 2 RBIs and 1 stolen bases. So he's batting just a paltry 136. His OPS is 409. He's pressing. I mean, this is a guy that's supposed to be a part of the long-term outfield core for the Giants. You want to be able to be excited for these young players, but he's pressing right now. And this is your fear when you call a guy up, especially when they feel like they're ready. They've done everything they're supposed to at AAA. When they get there, the adjustments are not being made, and he's ice cold right now. And there's always the risk too that you're just like, instilling some trauma for these young players when they're like, maybe I just can't do it at this level. And I understand it's only 22 at bats, but you get concerned about a guy like Drew Gilbert, who's very, very high touted. And this is a guy that the Giants are going to be relying on for years to come if things go right.
Doesn't it feel like the Giants have had this issue with guys that are like kind of fringy?
Joey Bart feels like they never got going.
Right.
He became a pretty damn good player last year with the Pirates. Not the same this year, but still.
Luis Matos, I feel like for a long time they've been talking about. He's up and down, just kind of never. I just feel like they have a lot of kind of fringy offensive players that don't quite. And for whatever reason, I mean, it's new management now too, so you can't say it necessarily. It's just a organizational issue. I'm sure that Buster Posey and the guys that he has with him have a different attitude than the guys before him. But I don't know he's only been there for a cup of coffee, so we'll see. But in the Cubs thing, man, just to say, like, Milwaukee may end up winning that division by double-digit games. Like, 2 months ago, could you have imagined the Cubs are going to finish in second place by like 10 to 15 games?
I have half a mind to go listen to our NL Central preview and see what we said about the Brewers. I think we still held out hope the Brewers would be competitive because they always did it. I don't think I did. We always put the caveat in, and we just said that the Brewers always do what they do. I predicted the Cubs to go away with the division. I think everybody did. If you are someone who predicted the Brewers to do this, go out and buy a lotto ticket somewhere or go invest in some stocks and some Bitcoin, because obviously you can predict the future. But for me, look at the Giants too. Just want to put the finishing cap on that. They're a puzzling team. For a team that acquired Devers when they did, felt like they were on the up and up, and they were going to be complete buyers at the deadline and be able to challenge for eventually this NL West crown, as unrealistic as it probably meant to some people, even a wild card spot. But the fact that you acquired Devers in the middle of the season and you're sitting 11 games back from NL West championship, and they just look beleaguered. And it's one of the more conundrums I've ever seen as far as a MLB season for the 2025 Giants. And there's been a lot of discussion about the Yankees, obviously, because I watch them on a day-to-day basis with the defense. The Giants are just as bad defensively, fundamentally, as the Yankees. And it might be the investment in this launch angle thing, trying your best for hard contact, where you're foregoing the fundamentals. And I think the Giants and the Yankees are both teams that have glaring issues that they need to sew up in the offseason.
Yeah, I'm not cool or young enough to use the word mid very often, but like, to me, the Giants for a long time now are like the definition of mid. I feel like that word kind of ties it up perfectly for the San Francisco Giants for a long time.
Would you sign up for those 3 World Series titles if the Mets are going to be mid for the next 25 years? If you could have had that
25? I thought you were going to say like 10, and I was going to say yes immediately. 25 is a long time, dude.
So you get 3, one every other year like the Giants did. Would you sign up for it? You get 3 titles.
I think I would, because guess what I've gotten? I got one when I was a few months old. So the answer, and now I'm, a lot more than 25 years old. So sure, I'll take the 3 World Series and the 25 years of mid.
All right, well, let's come around third and talk about the rest of the week around baseball. All right, as we come around third here to wrap up the episode, a little bit over our 90 minutes mark that we wanted to keep here, as the Brewers just took a 7-0 lead in the 9th inning as they look to take the first game of this doubleheader, waiting for the nightcap here. For what I'm looking forward to is the Yankees building on the sweep in St. Louis. Everything that we saw from them, Goldschmidt getting 3 hits yesterday, feels like a different team. And what a deodorant that winning is. Still 5.5 games back from Toronto, 67 wins at this point, still 10 games over 500. So if they hit rock bottom a few weeks ago with that, maybe the loss against the Marlins was that the rock bottom, they've been able to sidestep some of the chaos, and Aaron Boone maybe he steadied the ship, or maybe the winning steadied the ship. They've really dodged catastrophe right now. And I'm not saying that they're going to win the World Series or anything like that. There's still a lot of holes, but Cleveland has not been winning just as much as the Yankees were on a 3-game win streak, sweeping the Cardinals. We saw Cleveland lose 3 straight. So that 4-5, the 3.5 game lead in that playoff spot for them. So not as much panic in New York for both teams. And winning does that for you guys. And like, if you're going to win series at a clip, 2 out of 3, sweeping series, that's going to make a lot of the murmuring about the negativity go away. And that's exactly what the Yankees did in St. Louis to a team that they're supposed to beat.
Yeah, I have a few things I'm looking forward to. The first one is what you kind of just said. My New York team, the Mets, look, 2 big wins against the Mariners there. Take that momentum. You're going into Washington against a team that you should be able to take advantage of. Get 2 out of 3 there at least. Obviously, there's a lot of Met fans out there that won't even be happy unless they sweep them. But if you get 2 out of 3 win the series, you got to start feeling good. Like, all right, we're back here. Let's keep it rolling. So I'll look towards that as well. Going to keep my eyes on Padres Dodgers towards the end of the week, seeing how the Padres answer a sweep. I think that's critical for that team. And then in my own world, fantasy, I've mentioned this a few times lately. Our friend Matt put a big thing together at how this is our last week of the regular season for fantasy in our league. And then we start the playoffs. Top 6 teams make it. And it is a race among 3 or 4 teams to get these last 3 spots. 3 teams are clinched, including yourself. Congratulations. And those last 3 spots are down for the taking. One of them, we pretty much know who has it, but there's 3 teams very much on the bubble, one including myself. I desperately want to be in it, as I'm sure the others do. I need a little help, but I will be watching and refreshing the Yahoo app as much as I ever do, trying to get things done and hope for a little bit of luck too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the postseason for our playoffs, and it's been stressful. My team has gotten hot, similar to the Brewers. Maybe I'm peaking at the wrong time, but we'll see. I mean, I've been scoring a lot of points. Head-to-head points is where it's at, guys. If you guys play fantasy baseball and there's like not as much conversation around your categories league, you guys got to get into head-to-head points because, as Devin mentioned, maybe we don't like Yahoo, the platform, but we're refreshing it, watching. And dude, watching some of these the pitchers go out there for the guys you're starting in close games, it's stressful. It's just like fantasy football, man. When you're watching these games, every at bat has meaning, and you're watching these guys go out there. I almost lost my mind. I was playing Karen, who's in last place. She's now 1-18. So sorry about that, Karen, putting you on blast here, but 1-18, and she put up a fight the last couple of weeks. Like she took me to the limit. She played Jimmy, the first place team, and watching Charlie Morton on Sunday Night Baseball making his debut with the Tigers, going out there and striking guys out. I was ready to go through the screen and just be like taking Charlie Morton's jersey off his body. I'm like, I can't deal with this right now. Luckily, he was taken out of the game, but these things are stressful. Like the blood pressure gets up super high when you're watching these games play out, especially head-to-head points. How in the world, after a full 7 days go out, that we have decimals separating matchups? It's wild.
It's happened a lot lately, like going into a Sunday, the last day of a matchup. I mean, I was bitching and complaining all week about we're a quality start league where you get a couple bonus points for a quality start. And it was one of those weeks, and I ended up winning, thank God, to keep myself in the mix here. But like one of those weeks where I feel like every one of my starting pitchers was being taken out at 5 2/3, and a lot of them with pitch counts that shouldn't have resulted in them getting pulled. And it just happened over and over, and that is very frustrating. But yeah, I'm such a fan of head-to-head points league. I know a lot of passionate fantasy baseball players would disagree with us. And if you're like worried about the luck factor, then you do what I think we're going to have a conversation of. And I go back and forth whether I like it or not, but I know we're going to talk about it of, not only playing your matchup head to head, but also playing the median of the league. So if you have a little bit of bad luck, you put up a ton of points, but you play the top point getter in the league that week and you get a loss. Meanwhile, someone who scored very little gets a win because they played someone who had a terrible week. The median can sort that out a little bit. Some people, I talked about this recently with some of the guys in our fantasy football league, and a lot of them are against it because they kind of like that it comes down to a little bit of luck and all that stuff. So it really depends on how you see it, how important you think that factor of fantasy, whether it's football or baseball, is. But nothing better. And Steve, I just want to say before we sign off here, man, 100 episodes has been awesome. No one else I'd rather talk baseball with. Let's do 100 more.
Hell yeah, man. Likewise to you. It's been a great, and honestly, it's the commitment we have to the sport of baseball, talking it on a weekly basis, sometimes bi-weekly, getting these guests on. And I'm looking forward to the next 100 episodes and going down the list and getting episode 200, then 300. And we'll be there, man. It feels like yesterday we were covering, I was sitting in a Seattle hotel room recording about the playoffs where Alonso hit that home run. And this year has flown by. This season has flown by thus far. And I'm not wishing the summer away, but I remember back in the day, baseball felt so long. 162 games felt like a very long time. And maybe it's because we're recording on a weekly basis, but this season has flown by. And I've seen conversation about shortening the season. I could be more of an adversary to that idea. Like 162 games feels like the perfect amount for baseball. And if you are nearsighted or you have an ability to hold your attention for 162, maybe baseball is just not for you. That's one of the stances I have. I'm willing to be progressive in changes, but keeping the attrition and in the war of time that baseball manifests, so much has changed over the course of time. If you shorten the season, so much has shifted in 6 weeks. You take away 3-4 weeks of baseball, you're shifting exactly who would be in different spots. So I'm holding fast. 162 games is where I want the game to be. It's in a really good spot right now competitively.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The season does seem to go a little faster when you're talking about it on the podcast weekly, sometimes twice a week, and I think that's going to continue to happen. I mean, last year it was our first year doing this, and it just so happened both of our teams were in it until almost the very end, which made it very interesting. Whether that happens again or not this year, I don't know, but we love the sport of baseball enough to talk about it, whether our teams are involved or not. So, looking forward to how this goes. We're here on August 18th. A lot of baseball to go, but not as much as I said earlier. Games are starting to dwindle. It's going to get we'll see who lives up to the pressure and who folds.
Yeah, about 30 games or so left, 38 games for some rosters over there. And we're coming down the wire, and these playoff races are really tight. The extra wild card spot is adding a lot of dimension. You mentioned some teams that we discussed. Some of them are hanging on, which is good for baseball, meaningful games down the stretch, and for fantasy, keeping players playing because they have something to play for. That's the other conversation. That's the reason why our playoffs start next week, is because we don't want these star players being rested, especially on teams that got rotation shutting people down with mystery injuries because they just want to look forward to 2026. But as Devin mentioned, this is episode 100. We appreciate everybody supporting the show. If you can, go to Instagram and Twitter. Follow us over there at Tablesetters Pod. If you can, leave a 5-star review in honor of our 100th episode. We promise to be coming back all throughout the week, talking all things baseball. We're going to be working on getting some more guests on as we look forward to the playoffs and look forward to the rest of the year in baseball. So again, we thank you guys so much for your support. Here's to another 100 episodes. Congratulations to you, Devin. And until that time, we will talk to you after a while.